Johnson. I am the co-founder, co-director, and president of the Urban Indigenous Collective. And it's so great to be with you all today here on Sunday. We're gathered today to really honor the work we're doing around the missing, murdered Indigenous women, girls, trans, and Two-Spirit. So first, I'd like to really just share a little bit about the work that the Urban Indigenous Collective does to really fill the gap in research, advocacy, and education uh, to the public about the crisis and epidemic that we're facing. So the three pillars to our work are research, community, and advocacy. And the research component of this project encompasses our database, which tracks MMIWG2S cases through community reports as well as responses from the Freedom of Information Act requests. And this spans across colonial borders. So to date, we've actually filed 116 Freedom of Information Act requests, and our database is routinely updated with cases, whether they are tracked by police, we log the data or the lack thereof of these cases that we're looking at. And this data pertains to survivors, perpetrators, instances of violence, police and court responses, locations, and the analysis of the submissions and responses of those requests that we make. And then the community pillar of this project centers our MMIP task force. So this task force really guides the project, and we're able to follow the directive of survivors and really be able to listen to and honor the memory of our missing relatives through documentation in our database, right? So really ensuring that this work is survivor-led. As a survivor of trafficking myself, it's really important that our experiences and our solutions to these issues that we're seeing are held center, right? And we are leading these movements and this work. Annually, we host the MMIWG2S East Coast Summit, right? And this is a part of a really large activation that we hold throughout the month of May, right? It's really a gathering of kin and community dedicated to honoring our Indigenous relatives whose lives have been taken from violence and those who have survived gender and sexual violence, trafficking, and abuse. And during the summit, we host a variety of workshops. Some of you may have already attended some of these workshops or panels or activations, but it's really dedicated to the activists working to combat the crisis and the survivors and relatives to support their pathway to healing, right? And we begin the summit every year on May 5th, which is the National Day for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls. And as I said, followed by a month of just different levels of programming at our community center or with partners in the community. And last, our advocacy pillar of our program really maintains our policy tracker, which is a really unique interactive map that leverages AI and provides an overview of the current legislation and policy that has been introduced or implemented to address the MMIP crisis across the nation, which is really, I think, a valuable tool for organizers and advocates. And this information is available publicly on our website. We've been going through a new iteration of it, which Austin actually will be talking about, and we'll share some of the other activations that we're having after this panel. And our advocacy work really also engages with policymakers and legislators to address these systemic issues that are affecting our communities, right? And so we have actually advocated for and advised for policy for the first BIPOC missing and murder task force that was actually signed into legislation in December of 2023. So although we have, some feedback for that bill as it stands today, we'd like to see that more inclusive of our Two-Spirit and trans relatives. We're happy that we're starting to make some strides here in New York and along the East Coast. And so as we think about today, as we bring together all of these activists that do incredible, incredible work, and I'm so excited for this conversation. I think it's been highly anticipated. I know we're streaming across a number of social media platforms. So whether you're on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, or here on Zoom, hello to all of you. But I'd like to introduce our moderator, who will be introducing our panel and the discussion that we're going to be holding today, along with some just tireless defenders of human rights and Indigenous rights and the land. But I'd like to introduce you to Marianne Quay Almero, who is our MMIP program manager here, has really been pushing this initiative and organizing behind the scenes. Just my heart and gratitude to her for how she really shows up in community. She's a first generation Potawatomi and MSW candidate at the Columbia School of Social Work. Excuse me. Marianne earned her bachelor's degree from UC Berkeley, where she researched art therapy as treatment for PTSD and collectivist societies. Since her graduation in 2019, Marianne has worked in the mental health field as a strong means of support for youth struggling with addiction, self-harm, trauma, suicide attempts, and ideation, eating disorders, mood dysregulation, psychosis, and other challenges surrounding mental health. For the past year, Marianne has used these experiences in the field to support the urban Native community in New York City by providing mental health counseling and advocacy services. With the understanding of the relationship between mental health and oppressive systems that marginalize Native communities, Marianne also engages in social justice advocacy to decolonize education institutions, climate change, incarceration and police systems, and health accessibility. Marianne is spending her last year of graduate student as an intern with the Urban Indigenous Collective. Woo woo, we're so thankful to have her, developing programming on MMIP, direct care mental health services, and community health initiatives. On her free days, you can find Marianne participating in local social justice initiatives, supporting local drag artists, exploring new music, foraging, and spending time with her loved ones. Please welcome Marianne, my sister and kin and colleague.
Thank you so much, Sutton. Appreciate you so much for that lovely introduction. So Busho Mnogishket Jayek, Shetatquen Dejnika Spadwadminda, Hutugna Nduchbia. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to Event 4 of Urban Indigenous Collective's MMIWG2ST Plus Summit event. We're so excited to have you all join us tonight. So as Sutton said, my native name is Jetotque, which means creative woman, a name that was given to me in ceremony by my great uncle Bob Whistler. My colonial name is Marianne Almero. I'm a member of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation of Oklahoma, but grew up in Hutugna, known today as Orange County, California, on the unceded territory of the Tongva, Quiche, and Hachiman nations. I currently reside in Lenape-Hoking, the unceded territory of the Lenape people, known by most as New York City, where I am a new social work graduate, a therapist, and an intern and program lead with Urban Indigenous Collective. And before we begin, I want to give a huge shout out to my mother, who is here on the call tonight, Scarlett Almero. Today is her birthday. And if you've had the chance to meet my mother, you know that there is nobody in this world who is like her. She is a beacon of love and light and is never hesitant to share her stories and love with anyone who comes into contact with her. She's a beautiful Anishinaabe Badwadmi who deserves all the love this world has to offer. So please feel free to send some birthday love for my mama in the chat. I love you, Mom. Okay, so as I take this space to honor my mother, I hope all of us can take this time to center ourselves in the gifts and medicines our mothers, aunties, two-spirit relatives, and siblings through blood relation or kinship have gifted to us and our people. I myself come from a long line of matriarchs that are deeply connected through our power, but also through our pain. From my great-grandmother's experience in Haskell boarding school to the domestic violence I saw myself that I experienced in my childhood, the expectation of victims and survivors in my life has always been to stay silent. Stay silent to keep from ruffling feathers. Stay silent to protect our perpetrators. Stay silent to keep the family together. Stay silent to keep the community together. Stay silent because if you speak up, you'll be blamed, you'll be ridiculed, you'll be harmed further. Silence is intergenerational, it is taught, and it is learned. Silence allows injustice to wreak havoc until injustice becomes the norm. I am a survivor. I've experienced sexual assault so many times I can't even count. So much of my life I believed it was my fault, that it was my shame to carry, to the point where I hid it away. I stopped talking about it, and as a result, I silenced myself. I wish that I could say my experience is unique, but this is the reality of many Indigenous people, specifically of women, girls, two-spirit, and indigiqueer relatives, not just in Turtle Island, but all over the world. It is no coincidence that we who are the most vulnerable to the harms of settler colonialism and capitalism are also the most vulnerable to the sexual violence these systems have created. And complacency in these oppressive systems results in complacency in the harm of our communities. But tonight I come before you as someone who's been gifted with a community of powerful women, queer, and two-spirit relatives who have taught me that pain is medicine and that collective pain can be transformed into healing, then from healing to action. We stand together and say this violence and oppression is something we will no longer accept or stay silent about. And I feel so honored that we are joined tonight by relatives, protectors, and warriors from communities all over Turtle Island who are doing this work to combat these oppressive and violent systems and create spaces of healing for their people, past, present, and future. For tonight, I'll give each of our speakers an opportunity to introduce themselves briefly, and then we'll give each of them a chance to speak to their life experience and their work with MMIP. After that, we'll have a brief discussion, and lastly, take some questions from our audience. So without further ado, I'd like to first welcome Anita to briefly introduce herself, please.
Hi, everyone. Oh, gosh. My background from my previous presentation yesterday. Sorry about that. Just pretend that's not there. Hi, everyone. My name is Anita. I serve as Executive Director of Sovereign Bodies Institute, which is a family and survivor-led nonprofit serving other families and survivors. We are a research institute and home of the, as far as I know, the only international database on missing and murdered Indigenous people of all genders. We began that work about 8 years ago and started documenting women, girls, and two-spirit folks. And then as time went on, it became clear that we should include all genders. So today, that's what we do. We also do capacity building research in tribal communities around MMIP and related forms of violence. And also provide direct services to families and survivors. So to back up and here we go. That's a little better. Just to introduce myself as an individual, I'm a Northern Cheyenne descendant. My name in my tribal language is Heto'ovidoke, which means evening star woman. And I am joining from my ancestral homelands in southeast Montana. I live a few miles outside the Northern Cheyenne Reservation. And outside of my job at SBI, I also work for the Northern Cheyenne Tribe in the Tribal Historic Preservation Office, mapping cultural and historic sites. My kind of parallel career outside of SBI is as a geographer. I earned my PhD last year in geography from the University of Arizona, where my research focused on mapping geographies of violence against Indigenous peoples and utilizing cartography to better understand that violence and also try to imagine what geographies of safety might look like. So that's me as a person. I'm a survivor of trafficking and other forms of violence, pretty much everything you can think of. The two that I'm most public and passionate about is as a survivor of trafficking and a survivor of police violence. I think those two issues are much more common in Indigenous communities and throughout Indian country than folks realize or are willing to acknowledge or feel safe discussing. And so I'm very public about those experiences. And I also have loved ones that are missing and murdered. So this issue is personal to me in many ways. I I want to share a little bit about what SBI does as a service provider. Everything we do is unique, but I think that's really what sets us apart. We found early on that doing research on this issue, our research was going to be stronger when our people's needs were met. And that became immediately apparent in the early stages of the pandemic, and that's when we became a service provider. it's hard for folks to participate in research projects or advocacy or movement building when they don't have food to eat at home, or when they're figuring out how to buy a headstone alone. And that's the reality of most of the clients we serve. SBI has served over 600 households across the Indigenous world, the majority here in the US, but also some in Canada. And we have sister collectives in Mexico and Peru, and provide services in English, Spanish, and French. Right now, like I said, I serve as executive director, but I also am the primary advocate that works with families and survivors. We operate in 3 areas within our services program. The first being kind of like MMIP or violence triage work. So escape from abusers, missing person searches, funerals, things of that nature. And then our second area is basic needs. That can include everything from rent, utility bills, groceries, clothing, school supplies. We've done just about everything you can think of in that area. And that is definitely our most common day-to-day thing that we do in the services program, basic needs, groceries, really fill multiple grocery orders a day. Our people are hungry, and there's not enough resources to account for that. And then lastly, our third category in our services program is healing and advocacy. So we host a weekly virtual beading circle for families and survivors where we mail free kits so that everyone can participate and learn together. We help cover the costs of access to Indigenous therapists, or if there are costs associated with, for example, a survivor having a healing ceremony. We help with expenses like that. And then this year, I'm really excited. We're in the early stages of a strategic plan to further develop the healing resources that we offer outside of things like that, or case advocacy, which we also do a lot of. But really wanting to help our clients have opportunities to do some of that deep healing work rather than just kind of the day-to-day triage and treading water. So about half of our clients are here in Montana and Wyoming, and then more in South Dakota and North Dakota. And I'm in Southeast Montana, so kind of in a four corners area of those 4 states. And so we're looking to expand to provide horse therapy, medicine gathering, in-person bead circles. I'm really excited about that next phase of our work. As a survivor myself, horse therapy has been extremely beneficial and healing to me, and reconnecting with the horses that we have that ancestral relationship with by going out and catching mustangs and then learning to build trust with them and breaking them has been really, really healing for me. So I'm really excited for us to be able to offer that to our clients in the near future. That's the reality of this movement and the reality of what is needed for families and survivors. I'm very proud that SBI has created a model for providing direct services nationally and internationally. On a small team, on a small budget, we do a lot, and we serve a lot of people and make a big difference. And I would like to challenge and encourage other folks that are interested in being in the MMIP or MMIW space to step up and think about how to provide services to families and survivors, knowing that it's not just a matter of investing in a system of care for our people that are deeply wounded and hurting, which should be enough on its own, but also that it's preventative work. We have quite a few clients who, most of them are MMIP family members who have also experienced separate instances of violence as survivors, and are dealing with a complicated array of needs all at once. And some of them are life-threatening. And here in the Northern Plains, especially, we are in a resource desert. The nearest domestic violence shelter is 2 hours away. It always is full with the wait list. The next one is 3 hours away and doesn't take Native people because it's in Bozeman, and they know Bozeman's so expensive that they're never going to make it out of the shelter. So they just won't take people from the reservation at all. So there's no transit to get to that DV shelter unless you're riding with, our program or the tribal program, which is also stretched thin. And even like the nearest Walmart, the nearest place to get affordable groceries, 2 hours away, one way. So the folks in these communities really struggle with a lot, in a way that I think the rest of the country doesn't realize, when it comes to basic needs. Even, communities here don't have clean drinking water. So that's a whole other layer, in terms of trying to support families and having their basic needs met and having to drive 4 hours round trip to go get bottled water. The reality is that there are so many grandmas and aunties who are raising grandkids or nieces and nephews because the parent is missing or murdered, that's a perpetual need as long as those kids are in those households. Victim services does not address it. And more than once, often actually, we see those households at risk of losing those kids to the child welfare system, not due to any form of abuse, but because CPS classifies it as neglect. If the kids are in a home that doesn't have working utilities or don't have enough food to eat, and or doesn't can't afford hygiene supplies or clothing, and the reality is that's an elder that's stretched really thin and doesn't have help. And a parent and a breadwinner is gone. And that grandparent is grieving a child of theirs that was missing or murdered while also raising grieving children with no help. So it's an honor to be trusted by our people to step in and provide a system of care that helps to fill some of those gaps. And just in closing, I want to offer that, another exciting direction our program is moving this year is trying to kind of better unite our services program and our research program to be mutually supportive and learning from each other. And that already does happen. But one thing that we've noticed, and is something I've actually spoken to Lorelei about before years ago. I don't know if she even remembers the conversation, but it was when she and Butterflies in Spirit were in California, and we were talking about how this violence impacts mothers who have children that are missing or murdered. And I'll never forget, she told me that in her experience as an advocate working with a lot of mothers, some of them step up to become these incredible activists and leaders and movement builders and just this like incredible force of nature. And then others kind of implode and crumble in on themselves. And some of them die from a broken heart. And that's something that I've witnessed as an advocate too. And is something I've seen more and more in our clients is the high presence of things like autoimmune issues, cancer, of course, things like substance use and depression, obesity and diabetes. These are things that are a result of trauma, unresolved trauma and grief that's just compounding and sitting in the body, and hasn't necessarily, that linkage hasn't been studied or hasn't been addressed by the healthcare system. So this year we're starting a new project, to examine that linkage and try to work with healthcare systems to develop better practices, including a different screening strategy, education and training for healthcare providers, and through public health institutions, to get a sense of like, what are these health issues that are more common in MMIP families? How can healthcare institutions better meet those needs or anticipate them? And how can social services agencies, like SBI, work in tandem with those healthcare institutions, to make sure that our people are cared for in the long run, so that we're not only preventing, addressing the violence that's already happened, trying to prevent further violence by keeping kids in their homes and making sure people have their basic needs met, but also trying to prevent kind of a secondary form of murder. We're losing people from broken hearts, and that is preventative, or that is preventable. So really excited to start stepping into that space too. And of course, I could talk your guys' ears off about SBI and all the things we're doing, and I don't want to take up any more time. But I do want to say thank you to UIC for inviting me to share about our work. I'm happy to answer any questions about it, and really just want to leave folks with a reminder that this is more than an awareness event. It's more than a commemorative day out of the year, and that there are, real people that are suffering from this violence in ways that we don't, think about. Like I get called to respond to funerals and help plan wakes and funerals. And a lot of times I get to the house and there's kids that have bugs and haven't eaten in a week because there's so many other compounded issues that family is dealing with. So please, if you're passionate about this issue, and passionate about supporting the families, donate to the orgs that are doing the work, or get in it, and support them and their needs, and understand that sometimes it's a bag of groceries. A lot of times it's a bag of groceries, and that's also part of our work in this movement. Ash, thank you.
MMIWG, thank you so much, Anita, for all of the work that you do, all the work that SBI does, and just for such a beautiful share. Thank you so much for being here. We're honored to have you. Now I'd like to pass the mic over to my beautiful sister and comrade, Yvette Xochitl.
Hello, thank you. Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Yvette Boiso. My ceremonial name is Yvette Xochitl. It means heart of the gentle flower in Nahuatl. And I was born and raised in Mexico. I come from a small town on the outskirts of Mexico City in Hidalgo. I came here when I was 15. And, being an indigenous woman in Mexico is such a crazy reality. But then to live here in the States as a migrant, as an indigenous migrant, it has been just extremely eye-opening. And in reality, I started doing this work before I even realized that I was doing this work. I think like many of us, it's not necessarily a choice. Some of the first recollections that I have as a toddler, not even a little girl, are from violence. I came to the States fleeing extreme violence in my town. It wasn't until this year that we finally got a hospital. So a lot of the issues that we see here in the States with our indigenous relatives, like in the reservations, remind me so much of the issues that we have in Mexico, in the ranchos, in the pueblos. Same thing, poverty, the lack of resources, lack of medical access, simple things like running water. Where I come from, it's the place where water is born, and my people don't have running water. So I started getting more involved around 2015 because of the experiences that I had with the system, with the medical system. I ended up getting arrested for having a seizure before I was diagnosed with epilepsy. And, that just kind of, there's so many layers to the violence that we face. But one of the most important things is the violence that we go through at all levels, and the violence that we don't see. So in my screen, my background, these are the crosses that have immortalized the movement in Mexico for femicides. And I grew up watching them all over TV in the 90s. We had infomercials at night, basically telling kids to be careful. And that became the norm. That is something that just happens every day in Mexico. We know that little girls, kids, women, and the violence that our trans relatives, LGBTQA, suffer is massive. And again, it's more like we don't have a choice once we start understanding why these issues happen and where they're coming from. It's almost like being irresponsible if we don't do anything about it. So I participate in different projects. I am the project manager for La Raza database. It's a research project focused on police brutality and the undercount of the deaths of people of color. And I'm also the founder of Tejoli organization, which is led by youth and indigenous women. It's relatively new, only a few months old, but the youth is just amazing. And I'll leave it there. I'll touch more when it's my time. But thank you so much for having me. Tlaxcomati.
Tlaxcomati, sister. It's so good to have you. I've sat both in protest and in ceremony with my good sister Yvette, and sharing space with you is always such an honor and a gift. So I thank you so much for being here. Next, I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic over to Rachel.
Oso mauni wiak, ne aswisi na malkuki, nitota mawasa. Hello, everyone. My Menominee name is Namalkuki, which means sturgeon woman. I am an enrolled member from the Menominee tribe in Wisconsin. My English name is Rachel Fernandez. I've lived on the reservation most of my life. The only time I moved away was in my 20s, and that's when a lot of the stuff happened where I was trafficked. I come from a big family. I have a big family. I have 8 children, one in heaven, and 22 grandchildren, and a fur baby, Lucy. I am founder and executive director of Matikuakiki Matamosak, Woodland Women, here on the reservation, and we are elder-led. And a lot of the things that we do, I'll go back. When I was working in our victim services department, back when I was new in the work, years ago, I noticed that we didn't have support groups or any kind of support. It was just like direct services and things like that. So I created Woodland Women with the help of my aunties and my grandmas, and we started meeting at my home, and that really evolved over the years, where it is now elder-led and supported. Our elders are a big part of our healing in group, and over the years we've done talking circles, retreats, healing circles. And when I say healing circles, it's meeting weekly with each other in circle. We started out beading, and then we went on to sewing, weaving. We do classes for community, for survivors, quill work, anything that anybody wants to do, and all supplies are provided by us. So that is, we meet with all of our women. Some men would come too at some point over the years. Two-spirit relatives would come. We would just hold space for one another. And, we would have food, or our grandmas and aunties would cook amazing food. We would have coffee, teas. Our grandmas would show us medicines and how to use them, what we need to do in certain situations when we're hurting. And they would have that oral history, that the stories of when they were young, and eventually they shared the things that happened to them. And so it was over the years, it was really amazing to be a part of that and to witness a lot of healing. We had, excuse me, we had a lot of people, young ladies that were mentored. One of my friends, my sister, Melissa, she was able to, she's a mom. She's a mom to 4 beautiful children, 5 now. She just had a baby, but through all of that, she was in sobriety, and she went back to school. She just graduated Friday with her degree. So we all came and supported her throughout these years to really just stand with her in her healing, in her sobriety, in her educational journey. And now she's a substance abuse counselor, and she's doing amazing. So that's part of the things that we would do with our grandmas and aunties, is that mentorship and help each other through what we were going through, or what we are going through in the present time. So I want to say thank you for inviting me in this space. I am a survivor. I'm a survivor of many things. And like before, I shared that my late 20s is when everything happened to me with trafficking. I'm a child sexual assault survivor. I am a suicide attempt survivor. I'm a domestic violence, sexual violence survivor. I feel like I've been through hell throughout my life, but I'm here, and I've accomplished many things. And one of the most important thing to me is my healing. If I'm not good, then I'm not good for anybody else, especially my family. So it's been a journey. It's been a struggle at times, but I am in a good place where I can talk about things and share things. And I do that in order to give hope to others that can't say it, that aren't strong enough to say, this happened to me. So I share myself with everyone in hopes that things will change for our people, because this has to stop. The genocide, the oppression, the traumas, everything, this has to stop. And we have that power to stop it. And having these events, having these gatherings is a good way to do that. So I want to thank my niece, who is an amazing woman. I love her to death, and I support everything she does and everything she's been doing with her organization, and especially with her life. It's amazing, and it's beautiful to see people in healing and doing great things, and especially for our people. So Waiwanan in it.
Miigwech, Rachel, thank you so much for being here. Such beautiful and powerful work within community. We can't thank you enough for all that you do. Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic over to Charlene.
Greetings. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Ovanga Charlene Apak Nupak Siska Akpik, Chinik Mugurunga Sulina Chivik Mugurunga, Akaga Sandra Baby Lu Apak Ilchnaga Evan Luklan, Savaktunga Native Movement Me Suli Data for Indigenous Justice Me. So my name is Charlene Apak. My Inupiaq name is Akpik that I go by. I use they, she pronouns. My family is from Gullivan in White Mountain, Alaska, which is in the Bering Straits. So calling in from the far north here. I live on Dena'ina lands in Anchorage with my son, Evan Luclan. I work at Native Movement as a co-director of Gender Justice and Healing, and I'm the founding executive director at Data for Indigenous Justice. And it's an honor to be here to listen and learn from relatives all over Turtle Island. And I just raise my hands to all of you for all the good work that you're doing. Many of you have shared and are, have testimony to surviving everything that colonizers have tried to do to kill us, right? And that form of violence comes in many ways. And even when we introduce ourselves, like what an act of resistance to be here together and to knowledge share. So again, thank you for having me. And I also want to just share, I want to uplift Anita, Dr. Lucchesi, because part of our origin story up here in Alaska is building off of the good work that was happening down in the South. And so up here in Alaska, I, like some of you, I'm a researcher by training, but I started tracking the data up here in Alaska and was just doing that and with community organizers here, just really grassroots. And we started writing down the stories of our loved ones. And it became quite a bit. It became a database, right? And we know our stories, that's our data. And we operate off the truths of our loved ones. And so I've heard about Sovereign Bodies Institute when Anita was doing that work, and I reached out to her and I was like, okay, I've been tracking this too up here. And she was really generous in guiding and giving advice on what that could look like up here if I founded an organization. And with that guidance and knowledge and encouragement, sure enough, we found Data for Indigenous Justice up here. And like Anita, I was also going to school and trying to do all the things, run an org and everything like that. But so I just want to honor that lineage. And today up here in Alaska, I think what would be useful to share is Data for Indigenous Justice started to partner with other Indigenous-led organizations. So right now we have a working group up here in Alaska. It's called the MMIWG2S Alaska Working Group. And we partner with the Alaska Native Heritage Center. And they're an amazing organization. They help guide us culturally and provide external trainings and beautiful spaces for this kind of work. We also partner with the Alaska Native Justice Center, and that's a partnership where there are direct services to survivors and families up here. And so we're able to refer them to the Alaska Native Justice Center. And then we partner with the Alaska Native Women's Resource Center, particularly their law and policy. And Kendra Kloster is my co-conspirator. And just recently up here in Alaska on May 15th, just a few days ago, we passed the first MMIP legislation bill up here in Alaska. So it just makes me really emotional because, like, you all know that it took a long time to do that. We've been working on that for like 6 years, and it finally passed just the other day. And I could share more about what that entails and what is in that bill. It's just the starting point, as you know, like, not one bill is going to fix everything, but it's a big deal and it's a success for us up here. And we did that with the Women's Resource Center leadership, particularly Kendra. So I want to uplift her. She's Tlingit. And then our other partners are Native Movement, and they're an amazing organization that also just protects Mother Earth, lands, bodies, and waters. And they really provide the grassroots organizing. They build the momentum for our people. They inspire change makers on the ground up here. And so we have a really strong partnership, and Data for Indigenous Justice, of course, tracks the data and leads some of those research questions. And also, we advocate for data systems change. We know that it's so inadequate. And so there's also been some good success. Part of the bill was mandating data entry into NamUs, the federal database. And we also have gotten the Department of Public Safety here in Alaska to update their data fields based on our recommendations. So I could nerd out, and I won't do that right now. But I just want to share, that's some of the work we do. And then of course we do also community building, like some of you are talking about. We know that we must do this with and for our people and in community. And so that looks like doing beading, and we have a 5K coming up, and just gathering in a good way with our drumming and singing too. We did that just earlier this month as well. So I just want to, give an overview real quick and share about the lineage of the work that's happening here in Alaska. And I'm happy to answer any questions or to share my contact information. But I'm really proud of us working together up here. I think one of the things I like to share most is that it can be difficult to be in relationship with one another on such an already heart-heavy topic. But I'm really proud of us working together up here. We might not always agree on one thing or the other, but we stay united on this front of this topic because we know we have to. And that everything is meant to pull us down, but we need to overcome that. And I'm really inspired by you all. I love learning from everything that you're doing. So Koyana for all of your work, and yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Chi McWedge, for all of the work you do, and congratulations on that passing. We, as folks are saying in the chat, are so immensely proud to hear that, and it's something that all of us can build on together through this movement. So thank you so much for all of your hard work through that. Thank you so very much. Now I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic over to my auntie Sage.
Hi, everyone. So she is enjoying the lovely weather in Oklahoma. I'm at the lake, so hello. Hagilashi Shamamo Gagwatukwipto. I am Shawnee, Ponca, Oto, and Sioux. I am Rabbit Clan. My Indian name, Gagwatukwipto, means quick rabbit. I am coming from Norman, Oklahoma. I am the co-chair for the All Nations Two-Spirit Society. I'm also the co-chair for the Central Oklahoma Two-Spirit Society. I am a former Miss International Two-Spirit 2016-2017. I am also a mentor for the Central Oklahoma, well, not Central, Oklahoma Two-Spirit youth group called Cousins. That's kind of what all my work is based around now, is with the children and making sure we have safe spaces for our Two-Spirit youth. We are currently working on hosting the International Two-Spirit Gathering here in Oklahoma in November. So hopefully if you know any Two-Spirit folks, you can ask or tell them about it and have them come join us here in Oklahoma. And this will be the first time that Oklahoma is hosting the International Two-Spirit Gathering. Thank you. I'm very honored to be a part of this call today. I have not a sad story, but I do have a story to tell. And it's not been the greatest, but those things that have happened has made me a great leader, and to provide spaces for our trans sisters, our Two-Spirit people. That's all the work that's surrounded it. And it's just creating safe spaces for our Native peoples, our relatives. So thank you so much. And I won't take too much of your time, but I'll hand the mic over to the next one.
Language. Thank you so much, Auntie, for all of the work that you're doing and holding it down for the Two-Spirit community. We need you and we love you and we're grateful to have you. Thank you so much. And last but certainly absolutely not least, I'm going to welcome Lorelei to speak.
Hello, thank you for having me. I am calling in from the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations. My name is Lorelei Williams. I am from Shakti Nations on my mom's side and Stateless on my dad's side. Those are both Indigenous nations here in BC, Canada. I do a lot of work around the issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls because I have a missing aunt. My Auntie Belinda Williams has been missing since 1978. My cousin Tanya Holick was murdered by a serial killer here in Canada in 1996. My other aunt was pushed out of a window in the downtown east side Thankfully, she survived. My other cousin, Dorina Green, was taken by a different serial killer, Terry Arnold, and she was raped by him in the mountains. I am connected to several organizations I work for, and I'm connected to a lot of organizations, such as the Vancouver Aboriginal Community Policing Center, the Missing and Murdered Women's Coalition, Sovereign Bodies Institute. There's a couple of national brigades down in Mexico that I'm connected to. What else? The Sister Watch Committee. And yeah, I also started a dance group called Butterflies in Spirit, which is a dance group of family members of MMIWG2S and the disappeared, actually. And we raise awareness of this issue through dance. But not only that, we've actually started to do a lot of advocacy work. We've done rallies, candlelight vigils. We support families when they meet with the police, coroners, media, just anything and everything to support families. Lots of different things come at us, and we're able to support them the best way that we can. And which has led me to go back and forth from Canada to Mexico quite a bit. And I can explain more about that later. But yeah, my advocacy has taken me around the world. I've spoken down in the States. I go back and forth to Mexico quite a bit, Colombia, even in Europe, Austria, Rome, France, just anything and everything to raise awareness of this issue is what I do. I have 2 kids and a partner and a dog, and that's a little about me.
Lorelai, thank you so much for being here and all of the amazing work that you do. You truly are a warrior, and it is an absolute honor to have you with us. Appreciate you being here so much. Thank you, Chi McWitch. Okay, so that is all of our speakers for tonight. We may have one more joining us, Lady Shug. She had something come up, but we're hoping that she's able to join us a little bit later. So I'm going to check in with her in a little bit. But in the meantime, I want to provide our speakers an opportunity to speak more to the specifics about the kinds of work that they're doing and the things that are happening within their own communities. So I'm going to go ahead and circle back to the beginning, back to Anita, if you would like to share any more about some of the work that you do in your community.
Yeah, I'll start by apologizing. I didn't mean to have such a long intro. I thought we were I misunderstood. I thought we were going right into sharing about our work. So I won't take up too much time because I feel like I've already shared a good chunk about what we do. But I guess maybe something I would add is that if there are families or survivors listening, please feel free to reach out to us. We do have services available. We are going on a period of collective internal organizing and rest for the next 5 weeks. But July 1st, we'll be resuming our services and able to take new clients. Yeah, I think maybe one last thing I would say about SBI that I think resonates with everybody, all of the speakers today, and is definitely something that I've learned and watched all of our speakers role model, especially I learned so much from Dr. Apoc, from Lorelai, from Sutton. These are folks that I've had the privilege and the blessing to have been in relationship with for years. And it's been so awesome to see all of their individual projects and programs just take off. And of course, Lorelai has been in this movement so much longer than me. As part of that, I want to acknowledge that this movement comes from deep organizing in British Columbia in particular and in Vancouver. And Lorelai is part of that history and that ongoing work. And I really respect her for that because I know how challenging it can be, and that area has such a rich history, both of incredible activism and leadership, but also a lot of violence and pain. But what I wanted to share that I've learned from all these folks and that I still see them doing and that we try to role model at SBI is family and survivor leadership. And, I think Rachel is another example of that too. Like having families and survivors empowered to build our own interventions, our own programs, our own circles of care, healing. We understand this issue better than anyone because we've lived it. And we're also incredibly resourceful and resilient because we've had to be. And that makes for a pretty powerful combination. One thing that I think, I used to say it sets SBI apart, but now I think it's becoming more of the norm in this movement and throughout Indian country, which makes me really happy, is that we are family and survivor led. We just built a whole new board. We have 11 board members and 10 of them are brand new. And almost all of them are MMIP family members, survivors of violence, or both. And our staff, our community partners, all of us are family members or survivors or both. So it's personal to every single person at our org. Everything we do is led by families and survivors, and in partnership with all of the clients that we serve. Most of our research projects or community projects are rooted in needs that we've learned about through being a service provider. And in walking alongside families and survivors in their journeys for justice or healing. So just thankful to be part of an org that can role model that, but also thankful to be part of a movement ecosystem that takes that value so seriously. And to even, be in a space here today with so many people who walk that talk alongside us. Thanks.
Language. Thank you. Such powerful work you're doing. Thank you so much. Now I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic over to my sister, Yvette.
Thank you. So, like I mentioned, I've been doing advocacy work for a long time. It feels forever. But what really got me kind of like out of my comfort zone and start working with people individually was my experience when I was arrested. Like I mentioned, I am epileptic and I have my stomach is partially paralyzed. It's called gastroparesis. And just experience within law enforcement and, being profiled and being discriminated. It was very painful. And I fought my case for 3 years. And while I was going to the courthouse, I had people coming up to me asking questions. I started helping people fill out forms and translating. Sometimes I will go with them inside the courtroom and just kind of guide them through the process, which is a process that I am extremely familiar with. And that's, again, out of survival. So like many of you, I am a survivor, mental, physical, sexual, prosecution, Mexico, and just, there's so many layers of the abuse and the violence that we face. Like I mentioned earlier, I grew up in the 90s watching images like this all over. Women go missing every single day in Mexico. I have some statistics to share with you. So as of today, it is an average of 9 to 11 women that die every single day in Mexico. Since the year, so Mexico started kind of analyzing and collecting data in the 1960s. I believe it was 1967. Since then, it's been reported that over 200,000 people have gone missing. And that's people from all spectrums, men, women, children, and trans community, people in the LGBTQ trans community. But there's an issue with this and how data is being collected, because usually Indigenous women are not being accounted for. The lack of resources, the lack of help, the lack of support kind of lead Indigenous people to deal with it in silence. In recent years, I think we have seen more of a movement where women are speaking up, which I am so happy. I am extremely proud of seeing women taking the front line and leading this movement, because I believe that's what's going to take, our voices, our experiences to be guiding the process. But still in Mexico today, indigenous people are forgotten. And I see the relationship that we have as indigenous people with the system, both here in Mexico, as being in a toxic, abusive relationship, where they keep telling us things are gonna get better. Oh, they're doing this out of love. Just give it another chance. That's kind of like how I feel about reforms. That's how I feel about legislation, and that's how I feel about trying to change things within the system, kind of holding on to hope that it's going to change, that things are going to get better. But in reality, the time goes by, the years go by, and it's one generation after another, that we continue to inherit this violence and abuse. And it's alarming, and especially with the cartel and the migration crisis that we are seeing. Like, everyone keeps complaining, right, about people coming over here, but they're not saying why. I feel like in Mexico, as you know, especially in the indigenous people, we are conditioned to not dream about going to school and coming back and serving your community. The dream is to come to the United States so you can help your family. I left Mexico in the year 2003. A few months later, the cartel invaded our town. The difference with my region or my pueblo is that instead of them flooding the town with drugs and violence, it's serving as recruiting grounds. So that's where they go to recruit people, the youngsters, they go to the rancho and get them, and then they go to other pueblos to force people to grow these substances for them. So a lot of people are being enslaved in their own land, which resonates deeply with me here in the States. I feel like in this situation of violence and abuse that we have been fighting against for so long, one aspect, and maybe it's a nuance, is online, the online world, social media. In the last year, I've seen social media become like a cesspool of abuse, where everything that we are fighting for, and we have been fighting for years, it's not being replicated online, leaving people like us more vulnerable and exposed to the abuse. So the abuse is not only happening at home, in the community, in the streets, now it's happening behind closed doors. Now it's happening from our own cell phones. And a lot of times when we talk about this kind of violence, or even cyberbullying, cyber harassment, we think about teenagers, we think about children, but we are not thinking about how this has given the abusers access to their survivors, where they're being constantly harassed, when they're being constantly stalked, when they're being constantly threatened. And that's really alarming, and especially knowing that not everyone has access to these platforms, right? So a lot of times I wonder, like, how do these people connect with each other, or like, how does this happen? Because it seems like it's so organized. But in reality, it's happening online. A lot of the violence and the targeting of people, it's coming from online platforms. And one thing that I wanted to also mention, in recent months, I've been seeing more news about the cartel coming into the reservations, kind of playing with the jurisdiction and flooding towns of already vulnerable people with more abuse and more violence. So I believe conversations like this one today are so important because in many ways, people like me coming from Mexico, we have already seen that. We know the signs. We know how to kind of like how to tell these things, right? And our relatives here have been fighting for so long, so long. We need to kind of see that it's the same movement. It's divided by borders, by colonial borders. But in reality, at the end of the day, what's, like with the system and with a lot of these people within organized crime, the thing they're targeting is this, our phenotype. We are not being targeted because we have the resources or just because of the land. It's the phenotype. There's no coincidence for me that it's indigenous people that go missing the most, and no one's looking for them other than the relatives. And that's true for the United States, and that's true for Mexico, that's true for Canada, that's true for Alaska. The change is coming from us. It's not coming from the system. Since 2016, maybe, forgive me if my numbers are not correct, but they've discovered over 100,000 mass graves in Mexico. When the 43 missing students of Ayotzinapa went missing, they started looking for their bodies, and they just completely unearthed another monster. Thousands and thousands of people just being thrown in mass graves with no name, no dignity. It's like you already took someone's life, and now you're just gonna completely erase them. It's horrifying. It's horrifying to see this is happening, and that it's systemic, and it's by design. I don't think there's a way for us to make amends with a system that has been created with intention to eradicate our existence. And the things that are happening right now, I think it's crucial for us to unite across borders, work together, and kind of mobilize our people. Within the aspect of my work as an advocate in human rights, I've been wondering why there has not been like a legal classification of murder and missing Indigenous women and girls as femicides, because I have no hope in the system to do justice. However, when they classify the murder of a woman for just being female or female presenting, it adds another layer of a sentence. A lot of these deaths just go classified as homicide. And usually in Mexico, over 90% of them go impaired. There's no justice ever for these families. In Mexico, you can pay the police, you can pay the government, you can just pay anybody. When I was a teenager, before I came here, one of my cousins' friend went missing. She went missing after I came here, but I met her when we were teenagers back at home. And they knew what happened, and they knew that it was the boyfriend, and he fled. Then he got arrested only to be released and disappear from the face of the earth. It's such a big feeling of impotence to see there's girls just being targeted and being forced into these relationships and that's where the cartel comes in again. Because a lot of that happens within these groups who are doing human trafficking, sex trafficking. It's mainly Indigenous people that are being affected by this. I'll stop right there, but it's difficult to talk about this as survivors, I feel like a lot of times we feel like, oh, it's good, I can talk about it, I'm good. Like, at least we are at that point where that pain and rage has become power and we are doing something about it. But every time that we have to share these experiences, it's relieving them. And it's just so hard and painful to hear and see how many people go through this every single day. And that it's not an isolated issue. It's not just like it happens here or that it just happens in Mexico. It happens everywhere. So with that said, just I want to thank you all for creating this kind of space and bring us together and kind of have these conversations, because it's extremely important that we work together, that we hear each other, that we share experiences so we can find solutions for the next 7 generations, not only for us today and heal today, but that we break that chain. It's been going on for so long, since 1492. But thank you.
Gee, Miigwech, thank you so much, sister. You always bring such important and nuanced perspectives to dismantling these systems that are so necessary. And I'm always inspired by you, and thank you so much for being here and sharing your voice. It's so needed. So thank you. I'll go ahead and pass the mic over to Rachel.
Let's see. Over the years, we've done, I think I touched on like the talking circles, the circles of healing, the retreats. One of the things that I didn't mention was, the marches and the rallies and the events that we sponsor or we collaborate with others to do. There has been a time where early on, like when we first created the group, we started talking about our missing sisters, our murdered sisters, and we started doing walks here on our reservation, and starting that with a water walk and having our aunties and our grandmas lead that, and with that good medicine. I'll share a story. One year we did it on May 5th, and we start down by our Kashina Falls, and that is where our sturgeon would come and spawn, and because of a dam being built in our neighboring county, now our sturgeon aren't able to come home. We have to put them in the creek next to the falls and let them spawn that way. But one year we did our walk. We started down by the falls and we walked, I believe it was up to the college. We have College of Menominee Nation here. And when we left, when we were walking through town, there were so many cranes flying so high above us. You could hear them, and it was so beautiful. When we got to the college, my sister, she was crying, and she came up to me and she's like, Rachel, you'll never guess what happened. And so after we left the falls, our sturgeons started spawning there. So that was validation to us that our ancestors are with us, and how we honor them is important in those ceremonies. We had the water ceremony, and we did everything that we were supposed to do to honor our loved ones, our relatives. And so that was a beautiful day. It was so beautiful out. The sky was blue, and I've never seen the cranes fly that high. So there was a bunch just circling above us as we're walking downtown. So it was beautiful. So we do those things to honor our relatives. We coordinated an event at our state capitol because when we were lobbying to get a task force for our state, we went to the Capitol to talk to representatives and our legislators and everybody there to tell them this is what we need. We were lobbying for a bill to create a task force and all of that, all of the things that we do to advocate for our missing and murdered relatives. And it was so disappointing. I wasn't shocked, which is really sad because, as Native people, we're used to being treated this way. So when we were going around talking to these people, and their staff was there, and they didn't know this was happening to us, and it was really disheartening. And it was like a slap in the face that our so-called leaders are not aware of what is happening, or they were aware and they don't care. But we did that work at the Capitol, and as a result, we pushed for the task force. The task force, they did not approve it as it was written in the bill, so they kind of pushed it over to DOJ to handle that and to coordinate that. And so ever since then, Woodland Women organized wrap red around the Capitol every So every May 5th, we would, for 3 years now, we would coordinate wrap red around the Capitol. WCASA, our Wisconsin Coalition Against Sexual Assault, would have a wrap denim around the Capitol for April Sexual Assault Awareness Month on Denim Day. And I thought, why not wrap our red skirts, our red ribbon shirts, ourselves around the Capitol and have our singing, our drumming, our prayers, our medicines, our families there, and our families speaking, because I believe, and I know a lot of us believe, that it should be family and survivor led when we have these gatherings. Should be centered around our families and our survivors, so that they're able to speak their truths to power. And so what we did was we've had that the past 3 years, and each year it gets bigger, and a lot more people come to share their story. The first year was incredible because we had a lot of our elders from across the state come and share for the first time things that happened to them, how they were taken from somewhere and abused, left for dead, things like that. And it was very powerful to hear our elders speak their truth and to let everybody know that this has been happening, because we can sit and say this, it's been happening since colonization, but to hear those elders say that in that space was incredible. And I think it empowered more to speak. because a lot more came up and they spoke what happened to their family member, what happened to them. And so that's part of the things that we do. Part of the things that I do is organizing, is being able to provide a space for our families and our survivors and give them that power, that they have that control over the narrative. So that's a lot that we organize for the month of May. This year it was on May 7th because we wanted to have the state leaders there to listen, to hear. And one of the things that happened was it was supposed to rain. So when we got there, the rain stopped and there was a few raindrops here and there. But in the end, we had like a downpour. It was really quick and fast, but it was a downpour. And my friend Jen, she's works for the Wisconsin Women's Council, which I'm a part of. She reserved a room for us. So it was up on the 4th floor in the Capitol. And they were telling us you can't sing and drum while you're in here. And we had young men that had their hand drums and their drum. And they were like, well, what do we do? Or what, and I said, you do what you think is right for our relatives. And they're like, so should we sing? I said, I would, and I'll back you, I'll do whatever to take that responsibility. But as soon as we got in there, because we had the medicines there, we prayed and everything, for our families and for our relatives. When they got in there, they sang, got in that room, and they just sang their hearts out. It was beautiful, and nothing ever happened to us. Nobody came in there and said stop or anything like that, which I was anticipating, but it didn't happen. And I know our ancestors were watching over us. So that was it's like something amazing happens every year that we put this on. And even though it's been 3 years, it's amazing each year. So what other things do we do? Another story I'll share. A family came to us at one of our groups, and they had a court hearing in Brown County. So that's like a few counties away from us. And the person was trying to be released from jail, the abuser. And man, our grandmas, our aunties were like, we'll come down there. We'll stand with you. We'll stand, because that person was so terrified. She didn't know what to expect, but she didn't want to not go. She wanted to attend the hearing. And so we were all geared up to get in a van and go down there and stand with her, and be that support for her. So those are the things that we do. And it's all elder led. It's those grandmas and those aunties that have taken back their power and their control and their voice. And because we're all together, we're in that powerful circle together. It seems like it gives them more power, more, it just gives them more to do more. It's hard to explain, because being in that space with them, you can feel that strength. You can feel that love and that support. And it's beautiful to me. So there's two main elders that we always look to, and that's Miss Nellie Hapatas Tiedemann and Miss Rose Weka. And they're incredible women, teaching us about who we are as Native women, because our lineage, my lineage, even though I'm enrolled Menominee, my lineage includes Potawatomi, Forest County Potawatomi, and Muskogee Creek. And that I just learned last year when I went to, it was so amazing to how this all happened. Was I went to testify on VAWA in Tulsa, and that's where Muskogee Creek was relocated to. So I just had that feeling when I got there, and I asked my mom, I said, wasn't great grandma Alice from here? Wasn't she, you said she was Creek. And she said, yeah, but you need to ask your cousin Tommy, because he's been doing research on our family tree and history, because I don't know much about my grandmother, my great grandmother. And she was Muskogee Creek. And so he told me, I contacted him. He told me, he said that our great grandma Alice, her grandmother and her dad, they had land. Her great grandmother had land in Alabama. And when all that relocation was happening and all of that crap was happening to us, a Scottish prosecutor married her and took her land from her. And my great grandmother and her kids, my great grandmother's father, they had to walk the Trail of Tears. So that blew me away, because I was in the territory where they were relocated to, testifying on VAWA. And so I shared my story, and I could feel a release when I did that. I knew my ancestors were with me, and that story needed to be told. So part of what we do is providing that space, that safe space, to help and support and love and uplift others, so that they can tell their story too in that safe space. So that's part of what we do. We're rooted in community. And another thing that I'm trying to do is to go to GLTC, which is Great Lakes Intertribal Council here in Wisconsin. I'm supposed to be on their agenda Thursday. I'm trying to propose something to all the tribes, because all the tribes participate at this council. And I'm trying to get them more involved in what is happening to us. I feel like our task force, having that and getting that started and everything is great. But I think what is missing is our tribal voices, our tribal leaders, our tribal nations that need to step up and do more for our relatives. And I won't go into that, because there's so many things that I can speak to. And I think we need to take our responsibility and accountability and in how we move forward. And so that's one of the things that I'm trying to do also. I am a part of the task force for Wisconsin. I'm the data subcommittee co-chair. But I firmly believe everything should be families first. We need to put our families at that table instead of inviting them to the table. So I'll stop there, and if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But thank you again for this platform and for allowing all of us to speak from the heart and from the pain, from the love, from the joy, because we're all in this together. And I applaud everyone that's on this panel everyone out there that is doing the work that isn't here, everyone out there that is organizing and boots on the ground, grassroots, and doing everything for our relatives. I applaud you, I uplift you, I pray for you, and I love you. So thank you again.
We have so much love for you as well, Rachel, and we applaud you for all of the work that you do empowering our communities. It's so, so needed, and we are absolutely grateful for you being here. I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic over to Akpik.
Hi, Koyana again. Thank you all. You were mentioning being at the Capitol and drumming, and I just want to share that about the bill that just passed. We did an Indigenous fly-in, and so we flew 25 Indigenous peoples doing this work and tribal leaders down to the state capitol in Juneau, Alaska. And I think it was in February, early February. And that's exactly what we did. We drummed into the Capitol. We started on the stairs and we drummed right up the stairs, and we didn't ask permission. We just did it. And so we came in and we were going to be heard. You know, again, it took a long time. And so I just wanted to start with that because I just love the connections that we all have. And the other pieces I just thought would be worth sharing is one around data and mentorship. Like I hear like this group has a lot of experience, it sounds like, with stewarding the data and knowing what that looks like. And up here in Alaska, we're still building our bench of people who can work in the intersection of data research and social justice. And so that's something we have a fellowship at Data for Indigenous Justice where we mentor people into this work. We have 2 a year, and I think mentorship is an important thing to talk about because it's not easy work. And we all know we picked up the baton and have the leadership of elders. And even though I don't feel that old, we already need to start building up the next generation. And so I feel that strongly. And so we're trying to do a lot of mentorship up here as well. And so I just want to uplift that, and that I've had amazing fellows and I mean, just really inspiring people who are ready to go. So the other thing I wanted to mention was we worked with Illuminative on a media guide. We know that trying to get awareness on this issue can sometimes be difficult, like whether it's individual cases not being uplifted or, you know, family stories not being told. And then we also have, like, you know, there's been TV shows and different things that talk about this issue. And we really want this again to be led by Indigenous creatives. And so, because that vastly changes how the story is told. And so on narrative building, we started to come around again and share with each other what that looked like. And so I'm pleased to share that Illuminative just also released a guide in the moment. You can find it on their website, and it's a guide to media folks covering this issue to do it in a good way. Again, it doesn't cover everything that we need, but it does have the high points of guiding folks. And I think that that's important to say too, as social media and TV are often ways that non-Native people also hear about this issue. So we want it to be done in a good way. And then I know we're running out of time. So the last thing I did want to share is the important work of healing justice. And all of you, like I hear also, like Anita mentioned, taking time to rest and then coming back, right? And doing this in a way that we care for ourselves and care for one another, and that we're also restoring our community and collective care for one another in this work is really powerful, because part of this issue, of course, as we know, is that colonizers stole our webs of the ways that we cared for each other, our community care systems, and made us dependent on other systems, right? And individualize things. And so it's really powerful to come together and care for one another, check in on one another, and do that with intention, because this work is just so hard. Yeah, thank you for that phrase. And so I'm going on sabbatical in July after many years of trying to hustle and slay at this. And so it's very present in my mind to also share about that part of the work, like not just the tips of slaying hard and, our strategies and tactics, but also how we care for ourselves and one another to make this work sustainable for many generations. And, sometimes it feels like there's so much more to be done. Like, the next things we really want to focus on up here are the medical examiner's office, the Department of Law, all the things you all know. And sometimes people ask, what is your one thing? What is the one thing you want? And we say we want everything. There is not one answer. We are coming for it all, whether you're an ally listening or people in the movement. That can be said to anyone. We're coming for everything that was stolen, and we're coming back strong, and we're doing that because we're resting and healing. We're coming back with our ceremonies, our language, our songs. And so I just get really excited to reshape the way that advocacy can look, and that this is our time to change that trajectory in a way that's going to be sustainable for many generations. But again, Koyana to everyone, I'm going to pass the mic. And just love and appreciate all of you across Turtle Island.
So much love and appreciation to you as well. And thank you so much for your share and for being here. Carly, I'll go ahead and pass the mic over to you.
Hi, thank you. Sorry, I don't know where my charger is. I usually have it with me. Yeah, so I'll be quick. Because I only have like 12% on my laptop now. I think I would like to mention that, I have been going to Mexico quite a bit, Colombia, where they call it the disappeared. And this has helped me in doing searches in Canada as well. So, I've been going back and forth with the National Brigade, which are families of the disappeared from Mexico. So the families are from Mexico and their loved one missing in Mexico. I've joined the International Brigades, which are families who do not live in Mexico. Their family member disappeared in Mexico. And more recently, I joined the 10th annual meeting for the families of the disappeared. Actually, I just got back last week. And yeah, each time that I go down, I learn something new. The first time that I went down, we found human remains. We found 10 to 15 human remains. And some of the remains that we found, not sure if it was or
Got too hot.
sorry, I'm hearing something else. I'm not sure if everybody else is hearing that. So anyways, I say 10 to 15 remains the first time because we weren't sure if, there was 4 plots. We weren't sure if they were one person or a couple of people. And I feel like every time I go down, we find more and more, how do I say it? The second time I went down, we found some remains, but also a body. The third time we went down, we found some remains, but then we found, I'm going to say 3 to 6 bodies. And again, some of them had 2 bodies in them. And yeah, with that experience, I've been able to work with families up here. There's these 3 families that we're calling the justice families right now because they're fighting for justice. Chelsea Poorman went missing, and then she was found 2 years later after she went missing in $1 million home. These 3 justice families, I say they're fighting for justice. They were all the 3 people I'm going to mention were found within 16 days of each other. even though Chelsea Portman went missing 2 years prior to being found, and then there was the 13-year-old Noello Soup who went missing a year before being found. They were all found within actually time. 2 years ago, they were found, one right after the other. And while Soup went missing a year later in a rundown SRO building in Vancouver, and she had no reason to be there in that area. And Tatiana Harrison, she went missing, and we found her she was found within a few months, even though her body was found but unidentified. But when she went missing, she was found in a yacht area. Like, she was found on a yacht on a dry dock. On those cases, there were several things that I had learned in Mexico that helped me with these cases, even though they were found. Examples like, when I did a search in Mexico, there was this one time we were on the back of a truck, and all of a sudden we seen coyotes running up the side of the mountain. And all of a sudden the truck stopped and people started hopping out and they started running after the coyotes. And I was like, what is everybody doing? And I don't speak Spanish. I'm that were times the coyotes, when they find human remains, they actually bring them to their dens. So they've been able to find human remains in coyote dens. And just there's a lot of things that I've learned about when you find human remains, not just from that incident. Like I said, every time I go down, I learn different things that could help us up here in Canada, like stuff with cadaver dogs and the families down there. Like, I have so many connections with them down there in Mexico, and some of them have told me stories about how they've gotten the wrong remains. And this one mother spoke, and she said that she was told that she received what they thought was her son's remains, but each time she got it checked out, it wasn't even her son 3 different times. So families don't trust it. Even when the remains are given to them, it might not be their loved one. And so that's how many families across Mexico, that don't even know that they've received the wrong remains. And every time I've gone down, the number gets higher and higher each time. I've been going down there for these searches for about 3 or 4 years now. The first time that I went down, it was 100,000. The second time, or it's been 100,000 each time that I go down. It wasn't until last week that I started hearing it's 110,000 now. It's 115,000 now. The number's gone up. And yeah, I also work at the Vancouver Aboriginal Community Policing Center off and on, where I work with families of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. And I work with women in the downtown east side, but I also try to build positive relationships between the police and the community, which is very hard considering our history. But also, when you're up against racist police officers, is very, very difficult. So, there's some officers that I can work with on these cases, and there's some officers that I cannot work with on these cases. And recently I've gotten one detective kicked off of the case, which I didn't even know I had the power to do. But I got one detective kicked off of a case because that's a long story in itself. But, just doing this work all the time, I've been back and forth to the States as well. Anita has invited me down a few times to do stuff around human trafficking. And that's another thing that I do here as well. I do a lot of work around this issue, not just in my work itself, but at school. And oh my God, I'm at 6%. So yeah, just I'm grateful for my trauma training as well. My trauma training has helped me do this work. I have training in Indigenous focusing oriented therapy on complex trauma, which I highly recommend anybody doing this kind of work to do. They do go to the States. Actually, there's a connection in New York, and I can talk to somebody about that later. But that has really helped me. I do remember sitting at a table with Anita, and this young lady got up and she was going to the doctor. She said, I have to go to the doctor. And she mentioned about starting to get more sick or getting sick, and the doctors didn't know why. And she thought that it was because of the work that we do. And then when she said that, another advocate said something, another. And then I was like, oh my gosh, nothing has happened to me like that. And I really do believe it's because of that trauma training. It's important to do self-care, and talk to elders, important to talk to people in the community around this issue. And it's important to take time off when you need to, because this work is very hard, and we really have to take care of ourselves. And it's us that are doing this hard work, and it needs to be done, because if it doesn't get done, then if we don't do it, then they're not going to do it for us. And yeah, I'll just stop there, because like I said, I'm at 5% now, so I will log off and re-log on from my cell, just to be here for the end of the workshop, for the event. So thank you for having me.
Mitch, Lorelai, you are such an incredible beacon of advocacy and a voice for so many of the people that you work with, the families, the victims, the survivors, and we're so grateful to have you. Your voice is so needed here, and we thank you so much for everything that you do. Thank you so much. I'm going to pass the mic over to my auntie, Sage.
All right. Hold on, relative. I'm trying to get to a good, quiet space. Hope everyone is well. Made it home from the lake, and it's still beautiful. All right. So, as I was saying earlier, I work with the Two-Spirit Youth here in Oklahoma. A lot of my work right now is to protect our young ones, because I am a victim of sexual child abuse. And so it was very hard for me to talk about it for the longest time. And until I started working with our sisters here lately, and Lady Shook is one of them, they have kind of helped me find my voice and trying to talk about my traumas and how to turn that into helping our communities. I'm not a radical person. I am not a person that is all about political anything, but also talking about my traumas, it has helped me, and actually helped a lot of our youth that might be going through that kind of same thing. Also coming out as a trans two-spirit lady, there was sex work I had gotten involved in, and it's very dangerous work. And so getting in those situations and surviving those situations, it's very rare that our two-spirit sisters survive these kind of situations. So to talk about it, it helps me heal, and it helps me talk about the warning signs to our other youth that might be going down the same road. Every situation is different, just like with transitioning. Everyone has different situations to where they're struggling or just needing work, money, whatever that looks like. And it seems like an easy way out. I am against sex work just because of the dangers that I have gotten to survive. And so I try to talk my sisters into other work, because we are beautiful beings and we have to hold ourselves accountable of the things that we do later on in life. So my grandpa, being the chief of our tribe, he's always talked about before you can respect anything in life, you've got to respect yourself, and you've got to understand earth and how it works, and things that come about. The things you do today, you're going to re-encounter again. And so you've got to do things in a good way. That way everything is balanced later on. And so, yeah, I'm trying to keep my thoughts together on how I want to word all of this. My children that have came around now that I am part of the cousins group, the children have actually saved me through my depression and everything that I've been going on. And I didn't know that I would be in these positions to be mentoring these beautiful babies. It's a beautiful time in life right now because these babies have such nurturing parents, grandparents, aunties, uncles, and it's so beautiful to see such supporting people. And getting to mentor them and to make them into strong leaders is one of my main goals, is to help nurture them and get them to leadership roles, because growing up in the Two-Spirit circles, a lot of our elders say there's not a lot of young leaders. There's just our elders, and there's a gap there. So I've been kind of put in that gap to help carry on these ways. And being in my tribal ceremonies back at home, I'm one of the first out trans females in our cultural circles. And so having to navigate that and be a trailblazer has not been easy. And there's been a lot that I have seen in my lifetime to where there has been abuse. There has been not so much murder, but it could have been that way. And it's been dangerous because we have so many of our relatives that are brainwashed in this colonial way of life, to where they believe, this is the only way, and they don't believe in two spirits. They don't believe in our trans. They believe there's only one way and there's only one God. And so trying to show these babies what that looks like to be a proud trans person, a proud two-spirit person in these ceremonies, it's not been easy, but I do it because it needs to happen. I've been told several times by our elders that we are the ones that complete this circle. And until those circles are united again, we are a lost people. We are all one. We are not supposed to be separating anyone from their circle. And that's how it's been for a long time. And like there's things that have been told me that it's very man, woman, gender lines of why we do these things, but there's a place for us because we are mediators. We are the children. We take care of the children. We are medicine carriers. And so there is purpose for us, and to show that to our youth. It's been a blessing. I got to take our group. Well, our group got to be blessed to go to the the Two-Spirit powwow in February in San Fran. And some of the feedback that we got from the kids was how wonderful it is to see Two-Spirit people thriving and getting to be a part of powwow, and no shame. There's just nothing but love, and it's just beautiful. There's no gender lines. And so doing all this work, it is hard because growing up also here in Oklahoma, anybody that had anything to do with children, you were looked at as a predator. And so we've had to navigate what that looks like. And one of our sisters, one of our co-founders, she has a trans son. And I told her, so I was like, I think the best approach to do this is from a mother's perspective. I'm here to mentor. I was like, I don't want to be one of the front runners. Because I was like, they will come for me and try to say that I'm trying to be a predator for the kids. And that's not what we're here to do. This is what we're here to protect and watch these seeds grow. And so we have a lesbian co-founder and the mom, which the mom has now come out as Two-Spirit herself, which is beautiful. But watching this program grow over the last 2 years has been beautiful. We have such outspoken kids. they were so quiet. They've never been out into the earth. They've never been out of their city into a big city. They've never flown. And so getting to experience those little moments with all of them has been remarkable. These babies, they're getting very well teachings, and they're having us uplift them and show them the way. And honestly, there's probably not too much more we can share with them, is because they're already teaching us what it is to be an proud auntie. And it's beautiful. I want to also leave with my niece. She her mother is a MMIW. She was murdered here in Oklahoma. And so that's another part of work that I want to nurture, because I also grew up without a parent, which my parent grew up was killed in a car accident, but my niece lost her mom when she was very young, as well as I do. So to experience someone that has been murdered without any answers is very, very scary. And it's to have no answers, there's nothing I can tell her to soften that news, or to tell her, it's going to be all right. It's not all right. Every child deserves to have their parent. They deserve to have a mother. They deserve to have a father. And to go through this journey with her, it has not been easy. Her case is still very, very open, and there's no justice in it right now. So that's why I really, really like being around these kids, because they are strong. Like, to see her succeed and still go on and still fight, like, she's got anger in her heart. And I don't know how to tell her not to have that anger. Like, I want her to, because she's wanting to find out who has murdered her mom. And it's so frustrating, because there's laws that are keeping us from finding that out. And so I feel like we need to do more work into figuring out what's the way to navigate these, and to where she don't lash out and she don't want to find this person and possibly do harm to this person. So there are still things I'm trying to learn and navigate myself. But being a part of this group, this circle, this talking group, hopefully I can reach out to y'all, my relatives, and hopefully find answers, because it's we've never seen this before. So I thank you again for the space. Thank you for the time. Hopefully I'm not rambling, but thank you all for your stories and your good words.
Thank you so much, Auntie Sage. You are such an amazing mentor, and the way that you show up just as yourself and how revolutionary that is so incredible. And all of us are here to support you and be community for you and your family. So absolutely, anytime. This is not the end of this conversation. This is just the beginning, and this is something that we can all build on together. So very much looking forward to that. We are so lucky because we have the honor of welcoming our very last speaker, Lady Shug, who's able to join us. So I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic over to our last speaker, Lady Shug.
Hello, can you hear me, relative? Sounds okay?
Yes, can hear
Okay.
you.
Because I have a fan. I don't want it to be too loud.
It's
She's
perfect.
a diva. It's hot. It's hot under these lights. And also, I'm kind of bitter that Sage did not have a lick of makeup on, and I threw on this face while I was driving home to be here. So, Sage, I'm gonna get you for that. Yate relatives, my name is Lady Shug. I am from the Diné tribe. I am a drag artist. I don't use pronouns because my elders and my relatives never use pronouns. I'm just a human. We're just relatives. So if you want to call me something, call me a relative. Call me kin. Call me fam. Anything besides she or him, because our relatives never used to use that. Also, I think my earrings are gonna be too loud because I can hear it. But yeah, so I reside in. Hold on. I reside here in Farmington, New Mexico. I live in a border town to my territory, to my reservation. Farmington is an oil field town. It's always been an oil field town. There's always been a lot of man camps back in the 80s, if you do the history of where I'm from. So the work of MMIW, Missing and Murdered Indigenous Relatives, has always been prominent here in my area. So me as a little drag queen, if you didn't know I do drag, I always wanted to be a part of the movement because I like to support people that never had a voice. Because me growing up and being isolated on my territory, I always felt like I was different. Well, I knew I was different, but I never saw anybody in the spotlight, or I never saw somebody that looked like me or talked like me. Um, so being so isolated on my territory, I had to move away, but I always wanted to be involved. Um, my great grandma was always a firm believer to say that don't always complain. If something doesn't happen, you go do it. It doesn't, you can't always complain about this is not happening. You put the work in. So I thought about her. I was like, I don't see somebody that looks like me on the queer community. So I made space for that. Um, I don't see people talking, or I don't see much movement for MMIW pertaining to queer and trans and two-spirit people. And so instead of just complaining, I'm inserting myself into the work and making space. I think a lot of times we get intimidated. We're always the relatives to be talk for. We're never invited to these tables or to these spaces. So a lot of times we get intimidated or we're not allowed. And so I challenge all you all on here listening to assert yourself, make space for yourself, regardless of you never done it before, because I'm going to tell you it's so liberating. Because once I did that, I have never stopped. I'm currently on tour with my sister Landa Lakes. We're doing a all indigenous drag tour that's going all over the US and eventually internationally. So like that's an example. But with that, with my drag, not only talking about it and being invited to places like this to speak about what I do, but I'm now intertwining my drag, my artistry as a drag queen, to let people know I have a number that I do and I perform that is dedicated to our missing and murdered Indigenous women, our sisters. It's specifically it's gut wrenching. I hate doing it. The first time I did it, I cried after I finished it because I can just do like a little recap of how the number is. I come out in this costume that, for Halloween they have like the sexy Pocahontas, because a lot of times people fantasize about our sisters, and so I come out in the little horrible fringe outfit, bloody. I'm gagged or I'm tied, and I have my assistant, which is a white man, a Belegana. He literally like pulls me out on stage like in a body bag, and I do my number, and I'm like bound and I'm trying to escape. At the end of it, I tear all that sexy Pocahontas fantasy, and I have my MMIW regalia, and I have names of sisters that have been missing or were never found. They're among us, but never been found. So their names were there. So it's something I can do. You never see that on TV, or you never see that at the gay club. You never will see a number like that at a drug show. But I think it's my duty as a performer, as an artist, to kind of push those boundaries and challenge people. Even with the movement, I've never seen anything talking about our trans sisters, our two-spirit relatives, even our queer sisters. Here on my territory, fuck the police, should I say. I just came back from a rally, so I'm still kind of like off that high. We were rallying because one of our relatives graduated here in Farmington, and I don't know if y'all knew about this, but she had a beaded cap that they made her take it off with regalia, with her eagle plume, and they took that. So we rallied yesterday. It was so beautiful to see so many Indigenous people rally again. But going off that too, oh my God, now I'm getting all excited. See, I told you I'm all crazy. Anti-Shug is crazy right now. But I never seen with this movement, I've never seen a strong presence for our trans, two-spirit, and queer people, because society says that we're not deemed to be considered a woman. We're not considered to be a part of the binary system, which that's the colonial term, man, woman, two-spirit, queer people, we do both sides. But I've never seen a presence of that because I've had so many sisters get murdered or gone missing, and our so-called police just deem it as suicide, or they never try to find it. They're like, oh, that's another, it's another. I think back in my day, like one of my sisters that I was trying to look for, that's another shim, that's another him, it's another it. That was another term that they used to always use, but I knew my sisters weren't crazy. So it's easy on my territory, I feel like, to get away with murder. I live here in Farmington, which is an oil field town. There's always been man camps. Oh my God, there's been man camps here since the 70s, 80s, even currently. So these visitors, these colonizers, even our own tribes, it's easy for them to get away with it. I wish it wasn't true, but it is. And I, as a person, I, as a relative, I, as a child to Mother Earth, it's my duty to be the voice for my sister. Eventually, we're going to get our revenge. Our revenge. We have to. It needs to happen. Tired of seeing blue-eyed, blonde girls going missing in national news. What about my sister? That's beautiful, dark skin, beautiful black hair. Where's that? But it's us as a community that's when we need to be louder. Because guess what? Mother Earth is our mother, but also we have strong matriarchy. So if we lose a sister, that's our sister, that's our relative. I don't know if people might trigger me right now for saying this comment now, but even the whole thing with what happened with our relative Cole, which is presented a cisgendered male, everybody went crazy. They want to know answers. But I was asking people, where is your eager to find out what happened when it's our sister? Just because it's the male, cisgender male, you guys go crazy. I don't know. I didn't like that. Granted, I support that and I want to find justice for Cole, but where is that resistance, or where is that strength in numbers? Even our own people. Sometimes our own people are our worst critics. Now I'm rambling too. But yeah, so what the work that I do is trying to intertwine this movement that we have of intertwining in social media, intertwining it in our tour, intertwining it in my drag and in my performance art, but also just being vocal about it. Like I said, I was just at a protest for Genesis with the graduation cap. Her young Indigenous Lakota woman, and I was there. The queer auntie was there. I think I want to challenge folks to stand up, because a lot of times we're not afforded to be able to talk for ourselves because we're never given an opportunity. So I challenge y'all to stand up, talk, rally, resist. But my biggest thing that I always tell people is us as Indigenous people, us, our aura, who we are as people, nobody can ever take that away from us. So remember that, people that are watching that are Indigenous, my sisters, my relatives, us Nobody can ever come up to you and take your existence of who you are, regardless if you're straight, regardless if you're gay, regardless if you're trans, you are still a relative. But indigenous, that's power. Nobody can ever take that away from you. And you just existing and being who you are is a form of resistance. You might not be in the front of the line resisting or doing anything, but you existing as a person is power. And they can never take that away from you. Everybody, all the colonizers are scared of that. And I challenge everybody to tell them, once we find and people know that you have that power, they're going to be scared of you. Why do you think that the colonizers were trying to oppress us for so many years? Because they were scared of us. They know we're warriors. They know that we're fighters. So don't ever lose that. If you got anything from this, remember that. Nobody can ever take your existence away. And your existence is your form of resistance. Okay. I think that's it. I don't know. I don't want to keep going rambling. Like I told you, I'm still on a high from protesting and
Meg, Auntie, thank you so much for all of the work that you do. You are such a powerful, powerful presence and an example of what it means to really stay proud in who you are and use that to be a voice for your people. And such incredible art that you do as well. And you look absolutely gorgeous tonight. Just want to say that too. So thank you so much for being
oh,
here.
I painted this in the car. I had my driver was driving fast, and I'm like, she's like speed bump because I live on the res. So I was like, ooh, yes, I'm
You
gonna do
did
that.
that. It looks amazing regardless. You got through
Thank you.
those little res bumps beautifully. I have to say. So my heart breaks to say that we have actually reached the end. We're actually a little over time now. But I don't mind that so much because there were such incredible voices that were shared today. So many beautiful and powerful people doing incredible work for our communities. And we at Urban Indigenous Collective are just so immensely grateful to have all of you here with us. Just thank you so much. I think the last thing that I want to do, because I want to make sure that we uplift all of our speakers here today, is to have you all just share how everybody in the audience can support your work and how we can follow you and make sure that we're supporting you through all of the amazing work that you're doing. So I'm going to go down the list again. Just go ahead and share where we can find you, where we can follow you, and
Oh,
how we can best support you. You can go ahead, Auntie Shug.
rel
Go ahead.
not Sage. You almost call me Sage.
My bad.
Shady. I'm the pretty one. I was gonna say before we do that, I want everybody on the count of three just to take a deep breath in and release because we need to let that out because I know a lot of our talking what happened, we just need to let that go because we don't want to leave here on this space in a negative way or in an ill will way. We need to leave this as we're coming in with our hearts open. So we got to protect that. So on the count of three, 1, 2, 3, breathe in and release. There we go. Yay! I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you up, but I'll go last. But anyways, since I'm here, I am not Sage. You can find me on social media, all social media, Lady Shug Drag. That's LadyShug Drag, Drag. And you can also find me and Land O'Lakes and Sage on the La La Land Back Tour. That's hashtag La La Land Back Tour. Eventually, we're going to be internationally. We're traveling all over the U.S. right now, invading spaces, letting the colonizers know that the queers are not going to be fucked with. And also even our own pride organizations, we're invading pride. Because I'm like, how us as First Nation people, how are we not invited and given space? So we're demanding that. So look out for that. But yeah, it's nice to meet you all relatives. Please stay safe. Mental health is a real thing. If you ever need anything, please, 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 you can DM me on Instagram if you need to talk or even talk about what I just said and you didn't agree with me or disagree, please reach out to me. But my relatives, have a good night. I can't wait to hear everybody. Bye.
Thank you, Auntie Shug, for that very much needed deep breath and for sharing where we can find you. And very excited to see you on tour as well. Can't wait for that. I'll go ahead and pass the mic over to Anita.
Hey everybody, sorry, I'm helping to raise my teenage nieces, and I got called to a teenager emergency. So I'm here, I'm listening. Thank you all for sharing so many powerful words. My nieces are soaking it up in the background in the kitchen too. And just sending love to
Hi,
all.
nieces. Hi, nieces. Oh my God, what a
Thank you. And my sister Yvette, where can we find you? How can we support you?
Thank you. You can find me as Yvette Xochillot everywhere. Same username for all the platforms. I'm not really active on social media these days because I'm a full-time student and mom of two teenage boys. There's a lot happening, but you can find me on every platform as Yvette Xochillot. And more than support me, I would say reach out if you need help. As an advocate, I do so much work from mental health, immigration work, um, anything to do with like the legal system, the education system, anything where we have to go and check these people in places of authority and power, I'm there. So if you ever need any kind of support, any kind of help, make sure to reach out. And that's the best way to support me. Make sure that, we are connecting with one another and that we are sharing. Other than that, please look up La Raza database and check out the work that we have done on police brutality and the information that we are bringing to the subject. That's it. Other than that, that's it. Thank you so much for having me. This has been incredible.
This Locomati sister, thank you so much for being here. Let's see. Now, Rachel, how can we support you and how can we find you or follow your work?
So our website is under reconstruction right now because we're going to be focusing on healing. Culture is prevention, culture is connection. And so we're reconstructing that website. But other than that, you can find me on all socials, my name. So yeah, thank you. And thank you everyone. It was an honor being in this space with you all. Mawanan.
Chimigwich, thank you, relative. I know that some folks have been sharing in chat, which is great for our folks that are here on Zoom. But I'm just going to ask you to share verbally if you can, just because we're on X right now, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. So if you're able to share verbally as well, just so all of our followers and all of our viewers can make sure to support and follow you, I'm going to ask for you to share it again. So I'm going to call on Akpik, please.
Yeah, thank you. So what I put in the chat was we have dataforindigenousjustice.org and MMIWG2SAlaska.org, our websites, and then you can see all the socials there. Poyana.
Thank you. Perfect. Okay, now I'm going to pass it over to my auntie Sage.
Hello again. So you can follow me on Facebook and Instagram. Facebook is Sage Chanel with two L's, Chanell, and then Instagram is Chanel Sage. You can also follow Cousins on Instagram as Cousins OKC. And then also for the All Nations Two Spirit Society, the ones that are hosting the International Two Spirit Gathering this year, you can follow them, All Nations Two Spirit Society, on Facebook or on Instagram. We are also looking for funding for the gathering. So if you know any Two Spirit relatives that are interested, or if you want to come help support, bring an elder from Canada or Mexico, or just help out with anything, reach out to me and we will get you connected with who you need to. So thank you so much.
Sage, can you say the dates for the International Two Spirit Gathering, please, so that people know?
And the international gathering will be November 13th through the 17th.
Beautiful. November, right? I think it's in November.
Yes, November 13th through the 17th, and we'll be doing we will be having a powwow, a stomp dance, a sweat, our sweats to offer for everyone of all genders. And then we're also going to be doing a peyote devotion. We'll be having a Mr. and Miss International Two-Spirit pageant. So new royalty coming from Oklahoma. I'm excited for this event to come on. So definitely come check us out, show us some love, and hopefully see y'all around.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And last but not least, Lorelai, how can we support you and how can we follow you?
You can find us on Instagram, my dance group, Butterflies in Spirit, or my personal Instagram is Lorelai Williams. My Facebook is Butterflies in Spirit as well. And my Facebook personal has my Indigenous name, which I forgot to introduce myself. I actually just got it 2 years ago. 2.5 years ago, maybe, in Rome. That's a whole story itself. Palahelsia Lorelai Williams on Facebook. Thank you. Sorry, my cell is gonna die now. I'm having a weird thing with chargers and everything dying on me right now. So I do have to go because my cell is at 3%. So thank you.
No problem. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you. Thank you. And thank you to all of our speakers tonight for all of the wisdom, the love, the work that you're doing. It's uplifting all of us, and it's so much for us to learn and build from, and we can't thank you enough. You're always welcome at UIC anytime. Consider yourself a member of this family. And we're looking so much forward to our future collaborations and to continue this conversation because, as I said, this isn't the end. This is only the beginning. So grateful for all of you. Thank you so much to everybody on X, on Twitter, formerly Twitter, for everybody on Instagram, for everybody on Facebook who's joined us today. And just look out for the future events for the MMIP Summit. We've got one coming up this upcoming Wednesday, Indigenizing Artificial Intelligence with our very own Austin Serio. And then we also have the MMIP moving screening as well as the book club. So check us out, follow us on Instagram at Urban Indigenous Collective, and we'll see you at the remainder of our events. Can't wait to have you. Thank you for being here. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you.